Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Turning Point. I'm Versan, joined by my dear friend David and Nathan. It's great to see you guys. We have a lot to cover, but before we dive in, I'm going to bring you all up to speed on just the broader market. Over the past 5 days, the US dollar has strengthened, but today we're seeing a significant pullback again. Gold is at another all-time high again, $4,335. Silver has surged to $50 since our last discussion, hitting another record high, and it's been pulled back now to 47.51. Just another reminder how heavily manipulated these markets can be. Meanwhile, cryptocurrencies is hovering roughly around $4 trillion today, steadily climbing back. Signals are showing renewed momentum, and hopefully all of you guys were able to capitalize on any key positions during this recent pullback. Gentlemen, it's great to see you guys. We have a lot to unpack today. How's everyone doing?
Fantastic.
Good. Doing really good.
It's the first time we're doing a podcast together with Nathan and David here.
Yeah, pumped. First time meeting Dave. We've had a good little chat backstage. He's a big fan of the animals down under.
Yeah, we had a great visit there, and it's good to get to know and meet you, Nathan. And it's just a great opportunity, I think, for the community to be able to, get the perspective, from you. It's great to have more and more people that can actually give some sort of insight as to what's going on and why we're as bullish as we are in this ecosystem. I think is fabulous. So thanks a lot.
Of course. It's a real pleasure. Okay, guys. So I'm going to pull this chart here, but without going into too much detail, we did obviously see a very coordinated liquidation of major positions in the market. There were a lot of middle-class investors who were using lots of leverage. They are wiped out. And despite all the hype and momentum in the ecosystem, from ETF narratives to all these sensational headlines we're always discussing, a significant number of people have leveraged themselves and suffered massive losses. So I'm going to pull this chart up here to show people just how insane this was. What was it, like $800 billion, if I'm not mistaken? Give me 1 second. Here we go. My apologies. Look at that. Yep.
Yeah, 800 billion.
Any comments?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 20 times, probably 15 times more than the FTX crash. Way more than the COVID crash.
Yeah, way more.
Yeah, I said in real time, it was morning here in Australia. So I literally was taking my first sip of coffee when it happened. And I said I didn't need a coffee that morning because my heart was already pumping. But it was a telltale sort of coordinated demolition job in my eyes. I think what perfect timing. There was no way these institutions were going to launch their ETFs around that $3 mark for XRP. You've got the evidence there that tons of traders struggled to even get into exchanges around the lows of, say, I think it got to $1.20 for XRP at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you've just created this huge opportunity for the institutions to pack their bags at basement bargain prices. So that's what it screamed to me. That's how I read it in real time. I was kind of just sitting there sipping the coffee, laughing and hoping that I could get in. I was more upset that I couldn't access an avenue to purchase at the super low prices, but you managed to get in at a decent point.
Yeah. Can you, real quick, before we go on to David, tell us a little more about what you experienced? You said that you couldn't get any access to these. Weren't there indeed some of the exchanges that kind of froze?
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, I use a broker as well, much like Caleb and Brown, but I use Stormrake. So Stormrake are usually really, really good. They'll find, and in the end, they found me an avenue to purchase from, because obviously they're third party and they're going to assess where they can purchase from. Mm-hmm. But the problem still there is it's not as real time as I have to call my broker or send them an email. In this instance, I'm calling them. And to execute the trade isn't as quick as, for instance, me hopping onto my CoinSpot account or OKX account and just doing it myself with cash in there. So those the apps that I had set up, I struggled to get in basically. So then I had to revert to calling and getting in touch with my broker to make sure that I could get the trade that I wanted done. And then bundle in the fact that TradingView in real time was like broken. I literally couldn't even see. CoinMarketCap wasn't keeping up to date with the prices. TradingView wasn't keeping up to date with the prices. So there was really no gauge in where the price stood in real time. I got flashes from TradingView at moments, and then it would just like spiral of death. Couldn't even see what was happening. So that was my experience on it would have been Saturday morning for me, Friday evening for you guys.
David.
Well, I have to concur with Nathan in this respect, is that, I've been, now this is my second bull run, and in the first bull run, it was very much the same. When we would see massive spikes, and whether it was on the downside or the upside, a lot of these traditional exchanges that, incentivize people to look, we can handle it. We can handle your volume, all that. Literally, I don't know if it was on their part or anything in that regard, but the servers would go down. You could not log on. In this case, I even had people in my community say, look, not only couldn't get on Coinbase, couldn't get on Kraken, couldn't get on Uphold. Even if they did get on, they couldn't execute any trades. I think the worst one and the worst of all had to be Robinhood. People were not able to, nothing. I mean, nothing on Robinhood. Now, in 2020 is when we signed up with Caleb and Brown. So I've been with them a long time, established a really great rapport. And like Nathan, have a good relationship with the broker. And yes, the brokers, they'd have access into, it's not going to be real time. That is true. But, there's OTC trading that's going on, over the counter stuff. There's all kinds of other things in that environment going on, where you could actually have some liquidity. But I think this is a very telltale indicator of how retail is being duped, manipulated, taken advantage of in almost any fashion you can imagine, because we knew that Coinbase's overall liquidity in XRP was low, very, very low. And so for folks to get on there to actually take advantage of those dips, Coinbase didn't even have it. They didn't have it. And so, like a lot of the major players, well, do you think that they had the same kind of difficulty that you and I would have had, accessing the potential to take advantage of these? I think the thing that really bothers me most about this whole manipulation that went down, and we know it's manipulation. I mean, there's a lot of indicators. Won't get into that just at this moment, maybe later on in the discussion. But the fact that a lot of people who were not leveraging, right? They weren't shorting, they weren't longing, they weren't doing anything like that, but they did have some stop losses in there. Well, what happened is, as that price was dropping down, they were getting stopped out and getting their bags were being sold because they had kept them on exchanges, And as a result, they were taking no extra risk other than holding the asset on the exchange. But because they had stop loss in there, that stop loss got triggered. They got liquidated. They were not even able to log back in to buy back their position, right? And then on top of that, people that had limit orders in there, amazingly how almost none of the limit orders got triggered.
Right.
Kind of nonsense. But, that's my take on it. I think that there's something needs to be done, totally, or at least look into.
We're gonna break this down here in a moment, because I do want to get everyone's take here on what really happened. And before I do go down this rabbit hole of manipulation, and the name of this title is going to be something rigged, but I am happy to say, and I'm very happy to say this, that a lot of our community members, I was able to get a lot of feedback, and they were able to position themselves effectively. So the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, and that really makes me
happy.
You
guys. For my community, it wasn't.
Well, for mine, it actually was, and I'm very proud to say this.
Yeah, good. I'm happy for you, man.
Well, the fact that people were able to buy into these large positions and position themselves for the market to climb even higher from where we are now, and we're going to discuss this further. but I'm just optimistic about, the community, our community. And I just want to give them a big shout out for having the discipline and the insight to actually genuinely understand how these market cycles, they can read them, and they had money aside, dry powder, effectively buying power,
Right.
to
That's
get these
important.
cheaper prices. So
Mhm.
it's something I've been telling a lot of our audience on our Patreon to follow this, and it seems that it's been working. So I'm very happy about that. Do want to also break down what, a few things we need to acknowledge, okay, what really happened. And this is the other side of the story a lot of people are not going to like.
Mhm.
But I really got to tell you, this does trace a little bit back to the Trump administration. Okay.
It has to.
And I'm
Yeah.
not blaming
I agree.
Trump, just
No.
Trump, because, okay, yeah, I know he's playing 5D chess, is what everyone's going to tell me. Um, but there is broader market manipulation here. Just weeks ago, forget Jim Cramer. Okay. It was Eric Trump who was pushing and pushing and telling people to buy Ethereum and Bitcoin and keep saying that it was going to dominate the entire ecosystem. Then almost immediately, what happens? We see the narrative around the tariff, which coincided with a coordinated event that was liquidation over $1 trillion from the stock market, 800 billion something plus in crypto. And, clearly this is a reaction to the tariff narrative that came from his father. And that gave the big institutional players large short positions under the guise of the tariff reaction, right? And, if anyone thinks this was done to help the middle class or fight for a new financial system under the current administration, I think that's just very naive. You guys have any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. I think that I do think there was it just appears to be too coordinated, like you say, and rather than say that someone intentionally did something, but I do believe there are people who did act on knowledge. We know that there was a particular Bitcoin short that was put in 30 minutes before the tweet went out. I think that short ended up closing at something like 200 million in profit. And it was from an account that was set up just a day before. Another big thing I think is for a lot of these assets that were being targeted, they got their S1 filings for the SEC for ETF coming up right away here. Well, who is going to benefit the biggest for those? And some of these, ETFs already have their tickers assigned, like Canary. And so who benefits? Well, these large institutions benefit big time being able to get in there and purchase XRP at some ridiculously low, buys. And I really believe the story is not so much in the dump, but the immediate pump thereafter.
Exactly.
I mean, that thing dropped to $1.25 on Binance within 45 minutes, like boof, it was down. And literally almost instantaneously, bang, did it ever go up. But in that short 45-minute time frame, something like $19 billion of crypto got liquidated. And then the broader market and all this, like I said, all the stop losses in that. And we've seen activity like this before, but this, as Nathan, you pointed out earlier, this is worse than the whole FTX deal. And that was a big shocker. What I don't understand is you can't say the catalyst of just tweeting out tariffs because, hey, we had tariffs before. No big drop like this.
Yep. Yeah.
So I think the story is in the move back up.
I agree with you.
Who was shorting it, and at the same time, who was gobbling up all the big buys? A lot of institutions. Well, yeah. Go ahead, Nate.
I think it's you've touched on a lot of the points I was going to bring up as well, and I think I echo your sentiments. Really, both of your sentiments. The way this has played out this whole past year, like I saw an astute tweet this morning. Trump's probably going to come out in the next couple of days and say, "Oh, yep, had a really productive chat with Xi Jinping. We've decided to offset for another few months." And you're like, okay, so you've probably had the tap on the shoulder from the powers that be or the buddies at the institutions and said, look, sorry, mate, we need you to nuke the markets here. We've got the boys at all the exchanges ready to go. We've got the ETFs going live soon. We need cheaper prices. That's really just how I see it. That's the layman breakdown.
Yep.
And we know this from, I watch a lot of, I'm fascinated by leverage traders, successful ones. I don't do much of it myself. And all the really good ones that I've listened to over the last couple years said conditions for trading were so much easier when Biden was in. You know, it was benign, predictable, simple. You can clearly see there is calculated chaos in this administration. And I think a lot of it is obviously to propel us towards the end game that we talk about all too much. But we've got so used to the playbook. And that's, I mean, to me, it's actually just clear as day. And I think it's amazingly bullish. I was looking at it going, this is the perfect thing to have happened before the ETFs.
I agree.
It makes so much sense. You should be excited that this has happened. And I am. So that's my assessment in short.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on what you guys are saying, and I do see the opportunity in this and the reset. This is just a reset for an entry point because you have to factor in the rate cuts and the imminent of additional rate cuts and also the imminence of, the ETFs. So the entry of institutional money into the ecosystem. And it becomes extremely obvious why the reset with the action of the prices would allow for institutions to further consolidate their holdings, their positions. And I would say also, to be honest, there's another element to this as well that's rarely discussed, and it's to put more pressure on smaller exchanges, which are a little more illiquid, you could say. And this kind of consolidation funnels more liquidity towards the larger and more centralized exchanges and regulated ones. So there, I really understand what you're saying. There is the critical structure that does not change, and this is like the market cycles, but these massive swings are part of a game, and mastering that game is pretty much how you consistently outperform the market.
Definitely. I think one final point to this as well from me is this notion you touched on at the beginning, Versan, of being nimble, having honeypots ready, but also what we need to realize here is this was a flush out on the way down and you couldn't access, and we had, illiquidity, we had troubles accessing funds, or, for people that were panic selling, probably couldn't panic sell, but most of us were trying to panic buy. This is the same problem a lot of people will face on the way up. So if there's a serious surge off the back of these ETFs, or, the flip the switch moment, what do you think is going to happen then? If you're not nimble, you're going to get crushed. Like all of us, we have our positions that are rock solid that we're probably going to leverage through collateralizing. For me, that's my XRP. I'm never really going to touch it. But the other coins, like your XLMs, your SHXs, your Velos, whatever, that I probably will want to take some profits from, you need to be nimble. Like if you're not nimble in that moment, you're cooked. So that, that means having, as you said, Dave, have a relationship with the broker, have accounts, multiple exchanges, be prepared.
Agreed.
I do.
Any final thoughts on this subject, David?
Well, I was looking for a chart that I saw that someone posted and pointed out something very amazingly unique, is that in 2017, just before XRP, like within a matter of days before XRP absolutely skyrocketed, we saw a liquidity event similar to what we just saw, where people were liquidating. I mean, it just dropped right down. And I was actually looking for the chart because I did post, I posted, an image on one of my videos where I took this, individual, and I on TradingView, and took the chart over those number of years, and you can literally see the wick back in 2017 matching this one that we recently just had. And it wasn't but just a couple weeks later that the whole thing just fired off into some ridiculous numbers. Now, I'm not a TA guy, and I don't put a lot of weight on necessarily, that we have to see the same exact fractals in every kind of situation. But I don't believe for a second that we've entered into a bear market. I would say that, like, for people that are thinking, wow, this was the bear. No, a bear market, you don't see a drop that low and then a bounce right back up. I mean, we're over $2.55 today at least, which is not far off from where we were before the whole thing started to fall apart. So, when I look at that, and of course, I'm looking mostly at the fundamentals. And, we are going to see some big decisions being made by the end of this month. I think Ripple's banking license application with the OCC is being decisions coming out at the end of this month. Of course, the ETFs, and there's a few other things that are happening in there. And I think the fundamentals alone are really going to take XRP to, new heights. And I do think it'll happen in this next quarter. And I agree with Nathan that, it's always important to consider, look, we're all investing for a return on our investment for sure, right? But if you don't realize those gains, then they never actually happened.
Yeah.
I mean, just seeing it on paper is one thing. Realizing those gains is going to be quite significant. And I do think there are still a number of things that have to happen before a lot of the volatility gets, dissipated in this space. And so I think you just need to be, and I agree, have those provisions, that infrastructure in place so that you can capitalize on the opportunities when they come.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've been doing since January of this year. The 3-tier strategy I have, it's a foundation of gold, silver, anything physical assets. Long-term infrastructure is for tier 2. Tier 3 is short-term. So I continuously ride the waves pretty much and realize those gains, put tax money aside because you have to pay tax. But if you play strategically, you actually, like the return on investment in crypto, you make significantly more money than you'd have to pay in tax, which gives you the power to kind of rotate it back into tier 1. And of course, even tier 2 or tier 3, again, buying on those dips. So, when you talk about the regulatory landscape, I think it's also important to recognize a few key points. We've been reporting this for so many years, and what has become very apparent and clear is that the regulatory environment has been stalled intentionally in order to squeeze more uninformed speculators and, of course, to disrupt technologies that were actually supposed to free us from the banking cartel. So all this delay you see, this slow delay when we've been here for, I mean, crypto's been around for more than, 15 years now, more than that. Like this could have been implemented a long time ago, but the delays have created such an environment that leads to events like we saw the other day where most people got liquidated and institutional confiscation of assets. That's essentially what it is when you stop sugarcoating it.
Well, I think the one thing, it's not just those that were leveraging. It's people keeping their assets on exchanges and putting stop losses in there. Don't keep your assets on the exchange. Get it the heck off of there. Yeah. Because I mean, even though like nobody thought, okay, I'm going to put my stop loss at $1.50, you see, because wow, we're at, $2.50, $2.80, $3. For it to drop to $1.50, the sky would be falling. It fell. People got their stop losses, and then they were not able to get onto those platforms to buy it back. And so now look, they've and by the way, there's a tax consequence with being stopped out. If you bought it at 30 and 40 cents, you're paying capital gains on that.
I agree.
And now your asset literally in the same day bounced all the way back up to $2 and so. I mean, it is bad. So don't keep your assets on exchanges.
Yeah, and avoid leverage.
And avoid leverage. Well, leverage for sure. Leverage for sure.
Well.
But just having it there with a stop loss, they took it from you.
Yeah. Did you guys see that post on X of some guy who did leverage trading and he smashed his entire computer in his desk? It gives you the image of like how badly you screwed up. So
some poor Ukrainian guy committed suicide. I mean,
he
I don't know.
Yeah, I read that too.
Very
That's
sad.
horrific.
He's like dead in his Lamborghini.
Yeah, in Kiev.
Tragic.
Yeah, how sad. How sad.
You see how money is so powerful in a way, like it could get someone to do something like that.
Yeah.
Well, honestly,
really sad.
I don't think it'll be the last time something like this happens. I really get a strong feeling that this Clarity Act is going to be a real kicker.
I agree.
I've looked at that in detail. If what we think plays out, whereby only a handful get classified as a commodity, which I firmly believe XRP will be classified as a commodity. Bitcoin, Ethereum have already had the whole pass to that insinuation.
Right.
It's gonna cause chaos.
Of course. That's a very good point that you raised. Something we just talked about, not using leverage, making sure you invest in this infrastructure. I mean, the strategy is pretty damn simple if you think about it. Time and strategy are everything. We can confirm that. But the advice has been for a long time to invest in the infrastructure, place it on cold storage, protect it, and wait patiently. Avoid
Mm.
staking, avoid all the noise that you hear in the ecosystem, and please,
Mhm.
like, avoid DeFi. I think there's a time and place for DeFi. You can
Mhm.
leverage this technology and the new financial infrastructure, but only when the timing is right. So that requires people to be more disciplined for a long-term approach to all of this. And I think
That's
that's
good
how wealth
encouragement.
in the digital ecosystem is going to be number one, preserved, but number two, more importantly, amplified in a regulated environment. Because
Mhm.
when you look at digital currencies and looking ahead, something you just mentioned there, the Clarity Act, the Genius Act, what is it really about? It's
Mhm.
sure it's disguised as for financial measures, really regulation around it. But more importantly, to what you said, Nathan, it's about weeding out the bad actors. And that it ultimately is going to lead to capital fleeing all these unregulated assets. And there are thousands of them. And where do you think it's going to go? It's going to flow into assets like XRP and the strategic reserve, most likely. But
Mhm.
you got to think about it this way. Like, remember, it was XRP that got sued. I mean, Ripple got sued. So XRP remains the only legal regulated digital asset in the entire ecosystem because it was the first to navigate its way through the turmoil of the SEC lawsuit and emerge still as a winner, not classified as a security.
Mhm.
So when more regulation is enforced, the
Mhm.
precedent is only going to leave a handful of assets out there, and that is essentially going to destroy a lot of the crypto ecosystem. So once again, discipline, but thinking that regulation and compliance is really going to drive and greenlight the process for institutional support and backing and even real utility.
Well, I think they need it. Like, of course, the Clarity Act is going to determine what is governed by the CFTC.
Yeah.
And like you just mentioned, Versan, Ripple went through that entire lawsuit. During the lawsuit, obviously, in July of 2023, Annalisa Torres comes out and says, okay, XRP in and of itself is not a security, and that was never appealed. That's something a lot of people don't realize is the SEC never appealed XRP's classification. It was
Yes. Important.
always Ripple's liability and what contracts they had back in 2013 and all that, but they never appealed the fact that XRP in and of itself was not a security. And I think the case in point, if XRP was going to be a security, then oranges would have to be a security because
Tech.
it was the orange grows and the contracts associated with it, right? Not the actual asset itself. And I think that is a very telltale, indicator of what XRP is how it's going to be used in this new digital economy. Because one of the major pushes right now, of course, is decentralized digital identities. Australia, Canada, UK, most Commonwealth countries, they are going full bore with digital ID.
Mhm.
The EU is doing it, the same thing. We are going to be doing it. In fact, the Treasury Department we pulled out has asked for commentary, right, from major industry players as to how we can protect, right? And this is because of the Genius Act that they are required to go out and get this commentary, but they're wanting to know how what type of systems can be put in place when it comes to digital identities and all this in order to comply with this legislation, how it's going to roll out. So you got the Genius Act and you got the Clarity Act and this regulatory clarity piece. We know that this space has been measured and is known mostly for its volatility. Well, the volatility is due to a lot of the uncertainty.
Yes.
When all this legislation comes in and that uncertainty dissipates, well, the volatility is coming down. And like I like to say to a lot of people, when the volatility drops, the risk drops with it.
Mhm.
When the risk drops, well, of course, no risk, less reward. The fact that we can see the gains that we can see in this space, due to the volatility, is because we are taking on the greatest level of risk. Well, when that comes down and people are buying XRP at $100, $1,000, whatever it is, they're not taking on the same risk that we took.
Yeah.
As a result, they're not going to see the same level of reward. And a lot of people come out. I know you've probably seen this, guys, in your comments where they'll say something to the effect, oh, they're not going to let that many people get rich. There's not that many of us.
Yeah.
There's really not that many of us.
Mhm.
In a grand scheme, we're talking global population. Maybe there's 2,000 or 3,000 people that are going to get stinking rich off of XRP.
Like 1%.
Yeah,
less.
like
There's
1%.
less than
1%.
300,000 people
Have XRP.
have over 2,000 coins.
Right. And Nathan, how many of those,
Wow.
when they do liquidate, are going to have the money that they had when they got their XRP profits 5 years from when they took it? Not
And how
that
many people are going to sell?
No,
Well,
not
that's
that
it.
many. Yeah, well,
A lot
that's
of
it.
people
And,
squeeze out. I've been talking
Yeah.
about this a lot in my
and
content.
so at the end of the day, yeah, go ahead, Nathan. You got it. I think you're on track with what we're thinking. Go on.
Yeah, this has been a big sentiment of my content recently. I've had chats with Versan and the boys about this in the past, but it's been really at the forefront of my mind because the logical thought path after that is, well, what do we do when we're that bundle of people at the end of the road that get through and we are potentially sitting in a technocracy or a dystopian world? And yeah, where I think we come, well, where we land is we will probably have to syndicate together to help the less fortunate and move towards, commune living, collective resources. The world, I truly believe that's where we go. Whether that's a utopic version and we somehow dodge through the 5D chess and everything, less likely. But the end game's pretty similar for me. I think there'll come a point where the powers that be, they truly don't. One, they probably don't care. But the big kicker here, I do know for a fact in my heart, they do underestimate the power that, say, 100,000 people that make it, 50,000 even globally, will have in restoring balance and order within, the good moral. The good moral people of the world in pockets of community that we can establish, because it will be beholden upon us to pick up the breadcrumbs for the people that didn't make it through, that are stuck on UBI, that have their digital IDs and their 15 vaccines jabbed in their arm. We're not just going to leave them to rot and die. You need to. It's beholden upon us under God to aid and help bring those people back into the fray. So I think with great wealth will come tremendous responsibility for all of us. And that's where I see it going. But they don't really care for a couple 100,000 people. That's for sure.
No, they don't.
No,
and
they
that's
don't.
kind of where I went back to the whole, why you should never sell your XRP, and more importantly, the regulatory environment. It kind of weeds out the bad actors. And I think once you see a lot of the bad actors get weeded out, a lot of people are going to be stuck on the outside who were more speculative. They didn't really understand the ecosystem and kind of how this digital asset really works. Because I think later on down the road, I wrote a piece about this on Patreon today about how you can actually leverage XRP and what the hell does it really mean. And I mean, if you look at even at central banks, and let's talk about like the big institutions right now and sovereign wealth funds, they're already getting ready to leverage XRP, not just for settlement, but again for strategic liquidity management. And this is where it actually becomes a very powerful tool because, like you said, Nathan, XRP essentially does work and serve as a neutral digital collateral. That's what you can call it. And it almost functions like gold, or how gold functions. Because, I mean, okay, gold, it plays such a critical role. And that's kind of why we put it in the talking points over here, talking about gold, because the narrative around gold is incredible. And we've been covering this for years, but we have to go back to the reclassification of gold as a tier 1 asset class by the Bank for International Settlements. What that essentially means, and you're already up to speed on this, guys, but gold is becoming collateral at the core of the monetary system, right?
Right.
That changes the whole dynamic of the freaking conversation alone. It fundamentally changes everything from the base up, because gold is basically becoming the world's primary reserve asset. And that is not speculation anymore. It's not a secret. And, when people talk about the BRICS nations, for instance, this settlement currency, what are they talking about? They're talking about gold. And that's kind of where you have this digital counterpart. And that's effectively what XRP becomes. So I think later on down the road, when these things do take place, it's going to be almost impossible for other people to actually access this technology. They might be able to get drips of it. But yes, we will have a responsibility to leverage this this digital asset to kind of help redistribute the wealth to the rest of the world. And that's kind of where the rabbit hole topics really begin. Some of the research you've done, Nathan, and maybe you can bring us up to speed on one of your projects you're working on. Do you want to talk about that or another time?
Pertaining to gold.
Gold XRP, you know, kind of how it, you know, correlates, or I'm happy to break it down even further.
No, you keep going. I'm trying to find a chart that's going to further illuminate the point you're making. So you keep going and I'm going to bring up this chart.
Sure. So again, I've always thought that XRP was going to be digital gold because of how it functions. It can be backed by digital trade agreements. It can finance cross-border energy contracts. It could be used as a bridge asset. It could be used to settle tokenized commodities, fiat currencies. And when you start to look at the geopolitical situation, this is something a lot of the people in the crypto ecosystem don't always bring up. They don't talk about it so much, but we're living in a multipolar world now. And I believe that eventually every institution and every government around the world, and even individuals, they're going to want an asset that doesn't belong to a single country. And XRP is a neutral reserve asset for a digital ecosystem. And kind of going back to what we said earlier, it is going to be classified as a digital commodity. I do believe that. I think that's the end game, besides being a distributed reserve layer for a digital tokenized economy, but not operated by central banks, but by code instead.
No, I think that there's a lot of sense in what you're saying, but see, for me, I guess I think the one risk that we have, especially with the price of gold going so high, and of course, you know, liquidity being, you know, a tremendous weight on a lot of, you know, central banks right now, in that they are just the debt market, creating new debt, having purchasers for their debt. That's the whole point of the Genius Act. I mean, the Genius Act is requiring stable coins to purchase U.S. treasuries while they got a guaranteed buyer for their debt, don't they? And, you know, you have the central banks accumulating gold at record rates that they haven't done in decades, betting against their own system. A concern that I've always thought about is, okay, let's say you get a bunch of retail going out there and they start, you know, accumulating, hoarding gold, you know, physical. Whether or not, you know, we would see an executive order, you know, that that gold would be confiscated, or that in a different, but more different than the 1930s, because when that happened last time, but that they would repatriate the gold and then give you a tokenized value of it. And this is where I see you could see gold definitely being tokenized on ledgers. XRP ledger, Hedera hashgraph, different ones, is that the central banks or the governments or whatever may very well do this whole thing that they've done before and do a revaluation, because the system is imploding and it is going to go down fast. And it would not surprise me if they offered you a tokenized value of it after the fact. And the fact that it would be an agnostic asset, like what you were just saying, they're not tied to one particular nation, right? But an agnostic asset that is globally recognized. This is where I think they may end up doing something to that effect. It would not surprise me if something like that came about.
I agree. Nathan, you want to show something?
Yeah, it says I've shared the screen, but it's not coming up.
Well, I'll pull it up for you. Here we go.
Is it popping? Yeah, there you go. That would have been a nice backdrop.
Yeah.
Really cool chart, this one. It basically just points to exactly what we've been talking about here. This is the historic central bank gold accumulation. This obviously goes just prior to 25, I believe, but we're sitting at all-time highs here. And I've been public in saying many times I think the revaluation will come within the next couple of years. There was even I did a piece on it a few weeks ago. The Fed put out a report on their website explicitly stating that it's already in consideration. I'm not sure if you guys saw that, but they've explicitly said it. So it's clear as day to me what's coming. There's one more chart I'll quickly show here, which I think is also cool.
Sure. You could just pull it up. It'll. There we go.
Yeah, and this is the retail people that have positions in gold. When their position reaches a point, they can either cash out and receive their position value in cash, fiat, or retain the gold position itself because it's physically backed by the institution. So this is COMEX gold deliveries. This is fascinating. This is from the guy Gold and Silver YouTube, by the way. He does terrific work. I mean, look at this. You know, never before have we seen, at least in the last 30 years, you've got this clear parabolic run at the moment of people just hoarding their positions instead of liquidating into fiat.
Of course.
Yeah, they want the physical gold.
Yeah, much preferred. Exactly.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to go back to fiat.
Yeah. I just thought those were two little neat charts to round out what you boys were talking about.
No, yeah, keep it up there actually, because gold's rally is far from over. This is just the beginning.
Oh, agreed.
Right? And more interestingly, historically, if you look at the gold price, gold actually moves and it anticipates before major movements in the market. It happened before the tariff announcement, just to throw that out there. The second tariff announcement I'm talking about. And also before central banks start artificially expanding debt, in other words, before they start printing more money, and you start to align that and coincide it with the lower rates and even the talks of upcoming wave rate cuts. So it's basically a clear signal that central banks are just going to set the stage for more money printing, more exponential debt expansion. And that could be leading to the final hurrah for the dollar before a monetary reset actually takes place. And the monetary reset, for the audience, it's happening day by day. I get all this time, these questions about people saying, well, when is it going to happen? And I'm like, every day it's happening little by little, as Andy Schekman would say. So we're clearly living through the reset. And again, you have to take note that it has been reclassified as a tier 1. So it's happening little by little with breadcrumbs so they can front run people on all of this. But when you start to align everything taking place, and more importantly, let me pull this chart up. And I know I flash this all the time, but it's so important because the devil is in the detail. Give me 1 second. Nathan, did you remove it? Okay, there we go. My apologies, gentlemen.
You're good.
Everyone is familiar with this.
Yeah.
I have to bring it up again because just because it's outdated and we've been showing it a lot doesn't mean it's not relevant. Listen, the world, there's no doubt about it, is going back to gold as a foundation. And the United States is doing this too while playing the stable coin double-edged sword. And they're using that just as a mechanism to buy time, essentially, before all of this takes place. But, you start to look at the World Gold Council, the BIS, and, again, sorry to be repetitive, but gold and stable coins. It was those institutions that actually confirmed the merging into some sort of hybrid system. Yeah. And what does it say here at the World Bank? They are specifically saying stable coins. Stable by definition is one-to-one with the dollar, fiat currency, but it also says by definition, a tangible commodity. Well, what other tangible commodity is out there that's being bought up like crazy? It's gold. So there's certainly going to be a digital counterpart. And I guarantee you, maybe I'm years early on this, we are, but I still believe it's XRP because when you look at XRP's design, it functions like one. It functions like gold, just digital. So the connection is something that we've been talking about for years, and I think it's becoming clearer day by day.
It is. I'm going to add that to this with the nail in the coffin for this kind of presentation that I've been working on. I won't go into all of it, but it builds and dovetails off your point there.
Beautiful.
Versan, I'm going to bring this up real quick. This is a board that I've been working on, kind of like a finishing piece. I want it to be a multi-hour series where it's just your last chance to understand and get in, basically. And here we go. Let's bring it up. So to your point there, just let me know when you can see.
Yeah.
You got it? Cool.
Oh, wow. This
So-
is incredible.
Yeah, it's big, mate. I've got all the intelligence agencies. I've got your Teals, your Musk.
It's a web
big.
of truth.
It
That's
is
a web of
mind bending
truth.
when you dig
Yeah.
through. Yeah.
Not a web of
Yeah.
lies. This is a web of truth, ladies and
To
gentlemen.
your point, we know everything starts with the Nexus heavy hitting banking families, right? We won't go
Yeah.
into all the detail around the Morgans, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, but what we do know is that they obviously established the modern day central banking cartel as we know it.
Mhm.
Now, to your point, and I'll keep this brief because I'm going to do a proper series on all of this in incredible detail. We've seen all the documents from these central banks. We know it's intertwined. The audience are well aware. The kicker for me is the whole methodology of like syndicated banking cartel means. And what that leads you to is these things that I've kind of dubbed the elite economic amalgams. So you've got a few of them. You've got the IIF, you've got the Trilateral Commission, you've got the Group of 30, you've got the Bretton Woods Committee, and you've got the World Economic Forum's a popular one. You could probably throw the World Gold Council in there if you wanted as well. But the kicker here, and no one seems to see this, I mean, this will show them, is that at every single elite economic amalgam, you have key personnel that are either directly associated with banks that have invested in Ripple directly in their
Mhm.
Series B round, or they're installments that are cross representatives for both the amalgam and Ripple. So here you've got Raghuram Rajan, who's on the Ripple USD advisory board. You've got all these people across these amalgams that have direct or indirect concrete ties back
Yep.
to Ripple. We obviously know the World Economic Forum one. That's a popular one. But these go really deep. I won't bore the audience now because it'll take too long. But this is...
You're getting me enticed about that.
Yeah.
This is very, very, very deep. And lo and behold, when you look at these economic amalgams, who founded them? Rockefeller Foundation for the Group of 30.
Yeah.
You've got Bretton Woods Committee as well, was by the foundation families. You've got the Trilateral Commission by David Rockefeller. So everything feeds back to these early stage families. But what I find super interesting is that the genesis of our story in Ripple, the family who actually invented syndicated banking was the Fugger family.
Canadian.
Was the
Jacob Fugger.
Yeah.
Edo's done work into this in the past. So this is actually quite a really interesting bolt on. Jacob Fugger was supposedly the richest man who ever lived, who did pioneer this idea of syndicated banking. He made his fortune in, precious metals and ownership of mines, etc., etc. But the Rothschilds explicitly did kind of copy that modality and take it into what we know today. But yeah, and then you obviously just look at all the investors, guys. I mean, the angel investors are just crazy. Roger Ver, that's a story in itself. Jesse Powell, Greg Kidd, who owns 1% of the float. And then if you've got your ties back to Peter Thiel, which I'll go into, in the PayPal mafia. He got in the venture seed round in 2013 with the Horowitzes, Founders Fund, Lightspeed, Google Ventures. Like, yeah.
Everybody's involved, to your point, and it's
you can't make this up.
You can't make it
this
up,
is
man.
incredible
Make it
work.
up.
Like, Nathan, this is incredible work.
it
Like,
is.
you're
And
doing such a service here.
Well, when it's all done, guys, I'll basically give you the intelligence link I now have is concrete. That this was selected, but Bitcoin was used as a shiny distraction. I have the proof in here. I'm not going to do it today because I want to collate it in a way that's really compelling.
No, I appreciate that. I don't want this channel to get shut down. So,
well, the thing is how many people have been deplatformed just for pulling back the curtain?
Yeah,
I'm willing to risk it.
Yep.
No, if
I
you
get
risk
I
it,
get
it'll
it.
make such a powerful statement, and you're
Yeah.
obviously correct. I don't think you're wrong at
Mhm.
one bit. I think that was
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
miraculous how you took the time and
To put
effort to
that
put that
together, yeah.
together, right? And
Phenomenal.
to your point, this is why XRP at some point people don't understand. To understand the XRP, it absorbs liquidity. Essentially, is a swimming pool full of money, and holding XRP, you essentially secure your seat at the table where this is all going.
Mhm.
And to
Right.
conclude, to emphasize again, the price of XRP is going to be a direct result and an inevitable consequence, you could say, of becoming such an essential infrastructure for
Mhm.
hundreds of trillions, possibly quadrillions in global financial flows. And to
Mhm.
support that scale with that reliability for all that value, liquidity, and real time settlement, the valuation must grow exponentially to meet the demand to satisfy it. Right. So,
Yes.
at the heart to what you're doing there, it really comes down to also mathematics, how it's tied deeply to liquidity. So
I mean,
incredible work.
yeah, it is. That was very incredible. And we are talking about the evolution of the, of what value is. I know you guys get this question all the time. I get it all the time. A lot of people ask me, well, David, do you think XRP could hit $1,000? I'm like, yeah, for sure it could. But it's when it happens. Like $1,000 today is going to be a whole lot different than $1,000 5 years from now. I always come back with them. Well, the question really is, what will $1,000 buy you when it hits that? And the fact that a lot of people in their mind, they're still measuring the value of these assets against
Mhm.
a system that is literally dying in front of our face. I think when we really see a big shift is when we're not thinking if XRP is going to be $1,000 or $10,000 or whatever. It's going to be, what will one XRP actually do for you? XRP will be the motive value, the
Mhm.
measuring agent. And, that's how I try to think of it now. Like when I'm out shopping, I know sometimes my mind is so geared this way. I think, oh, how much XRP is that? How much?
Mhm.
I'm converting it in my mind, not to dollars, but into XRP. And I think
Mm.
once we kind of step over into that field, when we start thinking about the value of what these things are, that's really when I think, and I do think the adoption, all that, but let's be honest, the world's infrastructure and its governance is evolving. It's not going to look the same. Remember, when we're talking about the Federal Reserve, what, 1913, something like that? When we're talking about the World Bank, that was after World War II, was it not? World
Mhm.
Bank. You talk about the International Monetary Fund, again, 47, 48, 1947, 1948, somewhere in there. These are evolutionary agencies that have been put in place to, lead us to the next step of the monetary system that we're evolving into. We're going to see global infrastructure in this next big change, the fourth industrial revolution. That's what they are calling it. They coined that. I think it was the WEF that coined that. We are going to see new models, new infrastructure. It may not be the BIS or the IMF, but it will be something.
Yeah, like your video the other day from that tweet I posted, Ripple's the trust and XRP is the bank.
Yeah,
I mean, you guys
exactly.
get what that means. And just I want to share
I
a
do.
bold statement to,
Hmm.
to complement everything Nathan just showed us over there. When
Yep.
I looked at that entire thing,
Hmm.
two things came to my mind. Gold backs it, XRP moves it.
Yep. Yeah. What was
Just
the
like
others?
that's what
So
I
that so
so
those
that's
were
what
the
I,
two things, gold backs at XRP moves that. Well, one of the other things that came into my mind is these people have been out for global dominant and control for the entire, what, 200 years. I mean, and it
And
blows my mind.
consolidation.
And consolidate, and
Consolidation. Yeah.
I know a lot of people may not see it
yeah.
in this perspective. But to me, I'm literally seeing right before my very eyes the things that I was taught in Sunday school as a kid, and it is kind of
Mhm.
freaky, you
You
know?
mean the prophecy, right?
Yeah,
When you have
I mean, we're watching it happen right in front of our faces. If there was ever an infrastructure that could be used to actually introduce a financial system that would align with what the biblical prophecy of what it is, this has got to be it. Now,
Look at
will it
this.
happen in the next 50, 100 years? Who knows? But I mean, we're basically there. I mean, you're watching it happen. I was a federal investigative enforcement officer work in investigating the underground economy. I did this for 24 years. And during the time that Bitcoin came out between 2008 and 2011, I was actually out there in the field. And I remember always thinking when I was investigating the underground economy, how are they ever going to get to a place where they can make it so the rich and the poor, the powerful, the weak, and everybody has to acquiesce to a system, because there always has been an underground economy. How are they ever going to do that? Well, when you think that every dollar that's ever created can be tracked and traced and mapped and you name it, right down to the very inception. In fact, entire tax departments are more than likely going to close because there's going to be no need of them. Why? Because at the point of sale, everything will be accomplished right then and there. No one's going to have to remit jack or file an income tax return because it'll all be known.
Just
Nathan,
bring this this screen. I'm just trying to share again to David's point. I think you have to approve it or something to share.
Oh, my apologies. Here we go.
Yeah, you're right. So this, David, to your point, I mean, this is an extra layer to the board that I will go into soon. The first Christian coins ever, XP, Shiro, Alpha Omega, game over, done.
Yeah, it's just insane. And there was a great, well-respected prophet named Kim Clement who's now passed away. And he came out with a very detailed. Now, this is a guy that was accurate. He made it wasn't about fanfare. Anyway, he said, "Look, I see an X and a P in it, but it's going to be a tremendous investment of value." That is phenomenal, right there. By the way.
Yeah, and I've got that Kim Clement. I mean, Versan might, if you want to.
Oh, do you have it? Okay, I did not know.
I'll play that. I'll unstop sharing and let Versan play that real quick because I don't know how to do that.
Are you pulling something up?
I put it into the chat, our studio chat. If you want to put the Kim Clement, the YouTube link.
Okay, so if I click that, I think it's going to shut this down.
Oh, I have to bring it up in a separate tab. I'll bring it up in a new tab.
Please.
Bring it up in a new tab.
I just want to take the chance,
Yeah,
I've never actually played the clip from the chat.
Very good. Very good.
While you're pulling that up, do you mind if I just make a quick statement? Because,
please,
like history is so important. And like most people still don't realize that when Nixon actually took the United States officially off their gold standard, that's kind of when freedom was effectively stolen and handed to central bank authority, to this banking cartel. And they've been able to dictate the economic life and policy, through monetary policy. So we're all kind of subject to this, and it's eroded the middle class to this point where we are today, where now they're rolling us into a digital infrastructure, to David's point. But this has created an environment where most people are living in a modern day debt slavery.
They are.
And we can tie this here in a moment after this video into where this is going and how the Bible actually fits into this. I think that would be a great way to end this too and conclude. You guys comfortable with that? Okay.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
All right. Here you go.
Now, bear with. I don't know if the volume will work but let me know if it's playing.
I'm seeing this whole course. I'm seeing God doing it right now, where it's the source of energy is very important for people who are listening all over the world. And I had 2 clues, which I'm going to give you one today. Okay. I'm going to give you one clue now, which I haven't spoken of yet. You ready, Mr. Codebreaker?
Oh, here it is. Here it is.
Because I'm the code maker. And then the other one is the tree, the oak tree, which is a symbol which people have been researching, not yet revealed. But people are researching out there because it's a puzzle. God won't give us everything because it's not the right time. But something starting with an X and it has a P in it is a very profound something that's going to be worth investing in. And I can't say the whole thing because I don't know it. But I had a dream.
Did we hear that?
I believe it. I believe it.
There's only one missing letter. I mean, it's obvious at this point. There's no other term in the world that meets that criteria.
Yeah, no, that is actually spooky. Very, very spooky. And
I remember
2011. I think that was 2011.
I
I think he said that.
Yeah, 2011, before Ripple was even an entity and before XRP Ledger was even made. So, there's a lot of confluence for where we are going. And this is where I believe that, look, I've always said, look, I'll be in this space until they put something in me or on me. Okay. But I do believe, to Nathan's earlier point, that we are our brother's keepers. And there will be a time where we may be able to finance potentially a period or a provision for many, because, you know, the Bible talks about a great end time harvest, you know, and I believe myself and Judy have really felt like, you know, God has put us in this place, in this space, and in this place in time, to be participants in that. And that is really what, and I haven't really got into detail sharing that a lot. This is probably the first time I've ever really said why I believe, because there's always a why to your what. You know, many other plans of a man's heart, Lord's purpose that prevails. So for me, I've always asked, okay, why, God? Like, why did you open this door of opportunity and bless us just so significantly at a time when it felt like nothing was going to happen? Remember, it was during this period, the whole wide world was crashing, and we prospered in such a way that it was for us life-changing.
Well, you're going down a path that I think would be incredible for us to bring a discussion around this one time, but you start talking about timelines, and apparently, like the pandemic around that time, there was some split in humanity, without
Yeah.
saying words that I don't know if it'll get this channel shut down. I don't
Yeah.
want to risk it.
No,
But
don't risk it.
there was certainly a divide in
Mhm.
these two timelines, where one could take us down a darker path, one that can bring us back to God. And I'm a very spiritual person. I've always been a man of God. David knows this, and many of
Yeah.
us in the community. And it's something that Nathan put a short out recently on, and it was beautiful, because he was talking about how come so many people are drawn to, like, XRP. And I believe many of us in this community were guided by the same moral compass. And I think that's
Yeah.
really what makes us and this movement together so powerful. And, we've talked about this on the podcast, that it's not just financial, it's obviously a spiritual. And this is why I have such deep respect for you guys and for everyone in our community. We've come a long way. We've worked so hard to achieve what we're doing today. And of course, on the other side of this global transformation, I think it's going to be extraordinary. And a final point I want to bring back to what that video was entailing. So I haven't read the Bible much, but the concept of a bridge, if you look at the concept of the bridge and you look in biblical terms, the bridge and the mediators have some spiritual symbolism to it. For instance, Christ, he calls a bridge between humanity and God, example, in Christian theology. So, you could draw parallels to that. XRP is a bridge to the financial realm, redistributing wealth, control over debt and wealth. And this kind of redistributes that as well in Proverbs 22:7. So there are a lot of parallels that you could certainly bring, but that kind of leads me to the other side of all of this when I start to look at what happened in the UK, for instance. And I know it's happening little by little, but digital IDs, for instance, right? All these institutions that you showed in your chart over there, Nathan, I've read a lot of these documents. I have them on PDFs here, but it says that you will not be able to participate unless you have a digital ID, right? And look what happened. A lot of people say, okay, well, we have to rise up and stand up to the challenge. Well, do you know what happened in the UK when they started implementing these capital controls? This is what you were saying, David. Control, because it's digital. They can track and every transaction. So over 4 million people stood up and signed the petition and said to the UK government and the EU that, no, we don't want digital IDs. And the government just disregarded it. So that's authoritarianism, that's totalitarianism, and they are losing control of the narrative, and that's when they start to show their true colors. We're in the early stages of I feel like some battle.
Yeah, the revolt
There's a
could come.
monumental shift. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But it won't.
monumental shift.
Yeah, there could be. We don't know. Only God knows how it will play out exactly. I personally hold hope that we have to remember he's in control of even the malevolent forces for the design that he wishes to see fulfilled. And
That's right.
we are on the good side of history at the moment, I firmly believe. But this for me is always just a practical means to an end. It's a point of practicality that will enable us to God wants us to create or be godlike on earth. And I firmly believe this technology can allow us as a community to not only liberate others, but to potentially create a mini heaven on earth before the return. You know, obviously he could return at any point. And then would he want us to be sitting on our hands right now, not being conscientious and living in Christ-like image? No, he wouldn't. He would want us to be gathering our brothers and sisters, helping, not dividing. And I really do think this is the gateway to perhaps there is a pushback. To your point, Versan, there may need to be at some point hey, like we're going to run our own race over here. We've got we're building an aligned morality here, and you guys are pushing your digital IDs. At the end of the day, free will is still built into the doctrine of life. So if they choose to get the mark, supposedly.
It's just the on and off ramps. That's really where my concern has always been. And I've voiced it many times. It's like, if they control the on and off ramps, that's where my concern was. But we'll save it for another conversation because these talks can go on forever. And I'm happy to do it for much longer. So just to end this, and I'll let you guys, of course, say your final words, but I want everybody, the audience, really to be very mindful of what's happening in the world and, of course, who you're listening to, because I think, there's a lot of noise out there, and I think love really shatters all that noise. That's something that I'm always fighting for. And creation, that's something beautiful. Like I've always wanted to use XRP later on down the road to finance a vertical farm. And I want to be working in a garden for the rest of my life. Like that's something I'm compassionate about, and I'd love to do it because I can provide food. And food is so toxic these days, and it's sad. Like people can't afford to eat healthy food. Like, so that's something giving back, right?
It's beautiful.
It's just if the governments get the hell out the way. And remember, this tech was supposed to free us. So why are we encouraging ETFs? Why are we saying, oh, this is great? And, breaking news, like
my closing point would be, I have your same concerns with on and off ramp, but you guys actually talked about it. You taught me this when I first started to listen to you guys. The two-tiered system. We will be in the top tier system. We will actually have access to these products. They won't be able to tell us how we can and can't leverage it. And that's when we can help. In short, one quick story, very brief. I even have now a first-hand account where I live in far north New South Wales of a lady who just got a house loan with XRP from one of the big four banks here in Australia. So you cannot tell me that you can't already do it, because I just got first-hand evidence from someone out here. I won't name the region because I want to go there and cash in one day, maybe. But not to sell, but to collateralize. But she did. She got a house loan using it. So there's a kind of little reference point that I feel like we will be able to, and because we won't be copying UBI, we won't need to. We won't have to get injected. We'll be the 100,000 that then we'll have to help everyone else. That's how I see it anyway. That's my final thoughts.
That's really good. I think my final point would be that, guys, there's so much to look forward to. There's so much encouragement, from where this can go. It's, sometimes life deals you, a bad hand. It's not the hand you're dealt, it's how you play it. And I would just say that, look, number one, don't let yourself get scammed. There's all kinds of people out there mimicking us, mimicking all of us. People got me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, this, that, and the other. That isn't me. I'm never going to ask you for a dime. Be conscientious of it. If your XRP was worth nothing, this is a big, kind of like endorsement that all these scammers want it. So it must have some value. So be very conscientious there. And at the same time, focus on, like what is important for you. because this is going to be life changing for so many people, and you don't want to kind of miss the forest through the trees. It can make a tremendous difference, but you've got to be focused. You've got to have that clarity. You got to be listening to the right voices. That's what I would say. And so you really got to do your due diligence and get out there and research the heck out of it. And I would never make an investment based on someone else's conviction. Okay. Base it on this one right here.
That's incredible. All right. Well, this was a terrific discussion. I'm sure the audience will enjoy it. And, maybe we'll consider doing it next week. Hopefully we can get you on, Nathan, again. That'd be great. Or week after that. And hopefully we can get Edo back.
Yes. We need
I'll
to
pull
get
some strings.
Pull
I'll
some
try.
strings. The community misses Edo, so do
yeah,
I.
we do. Yeah,
It'd be
absolutely.
great to hear his new thoughts on Bitcoin.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, gentlemen, have a wonderful day, and thank you to our audience through listening
So
to
much.
us for what, an hour
Yeah.
and 30 minutes.
Yeah, quite a
Beautiful
bit.
chat,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thoroughly
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it.
Yeah.
Terrific. All right, gentlemen, take care.